Bonus! Welcome back, everyone. You thought you had heard the last of me. Ha 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 ha. I would like to share with you one short little lecture on how to become a millionaire fisherman. This has nothing to do with the class. It has everything to do with the rest of your life. If you would indulge me for a few minutes, I would like to share with you some things I have learned in my nearly 60 years on the planet. Some observations I have seen with high school graduates, a lot of observations of the mistakes I have made in my own life. One of the first things that I see a lot of college students, graduates do is they want a new vehicle. They've been driving, grandma's 1988, and they're just tired of it. It's old, it smells funny, and by God, I've worked my butt off for the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and I want something nice. And it is so incredibly easy to walk down to the new car dealership. In fact, they're expecting you. They roll out the graduate sale and give you an extra $2,000 off. For recent college graduates. And if that's something you want to do, free country, go for it. But I would like to point out a few pitfalls that could lead to, and help you with kind of setting your financial future up in a very good fashion. So, a lot of you will get new car fever. Some of you will get new boat fever. That old, $500 John boat from your neighbor back in Oshkosh just isn't cutting it anymore. Well, just hold on for a few minutes. I've got, I think, 4 tips for you that hopefully kind of pique your interest, your curiosity. And this is something that you probably have not gotten in your 4 years at Indiana University. Even if you're a finance major, you've probably not heard this before in this fashion. We live in the richest country in the world, yet about 70% of us live paycheck to paycheck. We, as a nation, handle money extremely poorly. We are a laughingstock for many, many, many poor countries because they handle their money much better. They're poor. They just do a better job of it. So let's talk about running out and buying that new truck, car, bass boat, whatever. Remember that you're buying a depreciating asset. The average new car cost in the U.S. right now is around $32,000. When you drive that vehicle off the lot, as you go from the parking lot and turn onto the road, there's this little clunk as you go over the curb. You think it's the curb. Well, in actuality, it's actually depreciation. You have just lost 20% of that car's value as you turn onto the road. That you paid $32,000 for it. It's now worth $25,000. So you're no longer driving a new car. The next year you have it, you're going to lose 15% of its new car value. And the following year, 15%, so on and so forth. 10 years, a 10-year-old car is only worth about 10% of its original value. So if you keep that car for 10 years, it's going to be worth roughly $3,200. that is a lot of money to spend on something that is going down in value like a rock. Yes, of course, you're getting the intrinsic value of transportation from it, but transportation can cost a lot less. Do you know that the average age of a vehicle on the highways today is almost 12 years old? That is phenomenal. When I was a kid, you told me that the average car was 12 years old, I would have laughed at you. Cars did not last that long. I mean, when a car was approaching 100,000 miles, you just hoped that it had enough life to get it to the junkyard, because it was done for. Our vehicles are so much better than they used to. I had a neighbor. He worked for Chevy. He bought a new Chevy, I think it was called a Chevelle. 2 years later, that thing was a rust bucket. Literally, the thing rusted in his driveway. The entire body rusted. And, of course, they blamed it on the paint and this and that and so on and so forth. But, things just weren't that good back then. That's why antique vehicles are priced so much. It's like, my gosh, this thing's lasted. I would encourage you to take a look at used cars. And when you're looking for a used car, you are also looking for a good mechanic. It's the dealerships make this really easy. You come in, you sit down with them. There's all kinds of YouTube videos that you could watch about buying a new car, and I encourage you to watch those. But we have this idea that this car is covered by a warranty, and you're never going to have any problems with it whatsoever. Well, we could just look at Toyota and the massive recalls that they have had, and Ford and Chevy and all the other manufacturers. New cars have problems too. Used cars have problems. A lot of times you can buy the used car after those problems have been fixed, so that they were somebody else's problem. If you're buying a used car, the first thing you're not buying is depreciation, because the vehicle is already depreciated, especially that 20% curbside depreciation. Finding a good mechanic is probably harder than finding a good car. I would recommend that you look for the old family garage. The garage that was started by the person's grandfather, great-grandfather, back during the 50s. If there's a picture of a race car, hanging up, in the garage, the quote-unquote lobby, which is probably not terribly spectacular. If there's a massage chair in the lobby of your mechanic, you need to leave right now. Anyway, if there's a bunch of videos that you could watch about finding a good used car. Take it to the mechanic and have them give it a once over. They can spot things. It's amazing. These guys and gals are brilliant. And sure, you're going to buy a vehicle that might have a problem. In fact, you will be buying a vehicle that will have a problem. But if that can be fixed for $600, point that out to the seller. Yeah, you might get $600 knocked off the price. Vehicles come and go. Don't get hung up on that new car smell. It is really, really, really expensive. Nobody wants to drive, a $3,000 dollar clunker for the rest of their life, and you certainly don't have to. So what I would encourage you to do is figure out what a new car payment is, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. And let's say it's $500. If you go ahead and pretend that you bought a new car when you're driving around in that $3,000 car, every month put that $500 into a car fund. After a year, you're going to have $6,000 in that car fund. You could sell your car for $2,000. Now you got $7,000 or $8,000. Go buy an $8,000 car and start over. Each month, save that $500. You build that back up to $6,000. Take your $8,000 car, sell it for, let's say, $7,000. Buy $13,000, so on and so forth. And it doesn't take very many years till you're driving a 3-year-old car that has had taken the depreciation beating, and you're driving a very nice car that you didn't pay that much money for. And honestly, when you pull up to the stoplight, the person next to you could care less what you're driving. You might think that they're impressed, but they really could care less. So, don't get sucked into the new car trap. It can be very, very, very costly down the road. In fact, let's talk about that. Debt is the killer of your future. The average person in the U.S. has around $8,500 in credit card debt. The average college graduate has around $33,000 in student loans. Yeah, I know some of you just really cringed and you kind of puckered a little bit. $32,500 is the average new car loan. And if we look at the monthly payments, $189, $393, $550. That's over $1,000 coming out of your paycheck, and you haven't even done anything yet. That's not covering rent. That's not covering food. That's not covering clothing. That's not covering insurance. Investments, books, video games, I hope you're making a whole bunch of money. And even if you are, there's a whole bunch of money that's leaving that, other than the student loan, everything's going down in value. So let's take a look at other things that we could do. We can see down here the average used car payment is $393. That's a lot better than $550. $452 is the average lease car payment. Do not sign a lease. Please, 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 for the love of God, don't sign a lease. This is the most expensive way of buying a car. If you're buying a new car, you could get that for 3%, 5%, 7%, whatever the interest rate is. When you sign a lease, you have no idea what the interest rate is. And by most calculations, it's someplace up around 15 to 18% interest. It is absolutely outrageous. Car leases are the fleecing of the middle class. Please, please, please don't do it. The absolutely horrid financial vehicle. No pun intended. Okay, let's take a look at some other things we can do to kill debt. Don't use credit cards. I believe it was MIT. It was one of the East Coast colleges did a research project, and they analyzed the pain receptors in your brain when you were using a credit card, a debit card, and paying cash. And they found that just like, hurting yourself, smashing your finger or something like that, where the part of the brain that registers pain just lights up and glows. They found that whenever a person bought something with a credit card, there was really no registration in the brain at all. Nothing happened. When a person used a debit card, they noticed that there was a little bit of the brain lit up. That there was a bit of a registration of pain when somebody used a debit card. But when a person used cash, the portion of the brain lit up at the same as if it was experiencing severe pain. Not that the person physically was experiencing the pain, but the brain thought that it was experiencing pain. Because if you think about it, a credit card's a piece of plastic, and you plop that down, they take it, and nowadays you just insert it into a little chip, or maybe you use the smartphone thing where you just wave it over the NFC chip, and nothing happens in the brain. You don't even think about it. When you use a debit card, you do the same thing, and there's a little cognition of, yes, I do have enough money in the account. Because with a credit card, they care less how much money you have. With a debit card, if your funds aren't in the account, that's not going to work. But cash, when you open up your wallet, your billfold, and you pull out a couple Benjamins, and you hand those over to the cashier, there's pain involved. It's like, bye-bye, Ben. I'll never see you again. So if we use cash, we don't spend as much. If you're using a debit card all the time, you are spending 30% more than if you were using only cash. If you're using a debit card, you're spending 15% more than if you were using only cash. And I'll tell you, my wife and I, we've practiced this, and it is amazing the change in our thought patterns between when we used credit cards to when we used cash. And of course we use debit cards now, but there's that cognition. Okay, how much is in the account? Oh, yeah, okay, we can do this. It makes you think. And that moment that you're thinking, that impulse purchase just goes away. And you end up not spending as much. And if you don't spend as much, you have more money. You have less debt. So, really, please stay away from credit cards. Credit cards are the most heavily marketed item in America. There is no other product that is more heavily advertised and marketed as credit cards. If you don't use a credit card, you will have money. It's really kind of that simple. Yeah, but I always pay them off every month. Yeah, you do now, but I can guarantee you that there will be a time that you won't be able to say that. And that's when things start to go bad in a hurry. No more loans. You've probably taken out a student loan. You may have a car loan. Please, when you get that new job in Provo, Utah, or Boston, don't go out and buy a bunch of furniture on credit. It's not that important. You really don't know anybody that you have to impress that much with fancy furniture and big screen TV and the latest and greatest whatever. It's not that important. Don't finance a big screen TV. Please don't. It's just silly. A third point here is to have an emergency fund. And as you're getting out of school, you may be broke. You probably are broke. Save up $500. Have it in a savings account. Have it frozen in a block of ice. But have $500 that you can get your hands on if there's an emergency. What's an emergency? You ran out of beer Saturday night is not an emergency. The car that you're driving, the starter just died. Okay, we'll call that an emergency. Technically, you should have an auto repair fund, but let's not push it. Something unexpected that you need cash now. If you have cash, you won't use a credit card. And it is amazing. I mean, you go out, you get a brand new shiny credit card. Let's go out and have a nice meal. That's $100. And then the starter goes out, and that's $300. And then you really, 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 really need this new gadget, and that's $200. And it's just a downhill cycle from there. Your long-term emergency fund should be about 3 to 6 months. You should have that for the rest of your life. If you're making $120,000 a year, that would be crap. I shouldn't have done this math earlier. What, $4,000 a month? You should have $12,000 to $24,000 just sitting around someplace. Not locked in. A long-term investment vehicle, just literally sitting around that you could go down to the bank and pull that out. This might be incredibly evident to a lot of you right now. There's a lot of people kind of freaking out because they may have been laid off, they may have been furloughed, and the rent's due, the car payment's due, the sofa payment is due, and the big screen TV payment is due. They don't have any money coming in. And they had $23.87 in savings the last time they looked at it 3 years ago. And that is kind of a pretty good reason to be freaked out. If you're sitting on $5,000 in the bank, you're kind of treating this as a bit of a vacation. A good opportunity to reevaluate my life goals. It's, they say money doesn't bring you happiness, but it can bring a whole bunch of calm. When things get tough, and things are going to get tough. We're going to get over this. And in 10 years, there's going to be something else. Maybe in 5 years. It seems like we have a downturn about every 10 to 12 years. And if you go back through history, I think you can kind of point that out. So have the emergency fund. Be ready for these things. Grandma used to call it a rainy day fund. And, her rainy day fund included, some cash up in a cookie jar on top of the refrigerator and a cellar stocked full of green beans. So, this is nothing new. We've done this, for decades, centuries. We've just kind of forgotten, a lot of us have kind of forgotten about this in the modern times. So have some reserve. It just makes you sleep better at night. The third thing is investments. Save and invest. Do you know that if you saved $85 a month for the rest of your working life, 40 years, you'll be a millionaire? Boom. Okay. Done. End of lecture. Yeah, it's that easy. $85 a month. That's 2 pizzas and 3 trips to Starbucks. I mean, come on. That's not, we're not talking Wall Street here. That's 12%. I know a lot of you are laughing at that right now. Since the inception of the stock market, it has averaged 12% per year. There are some decades that have been better than others. There's a lot of years that have been better than others, but overall, 12%. And if you don't like 12%, drop it down to 10%, and I think your monthly payment goes up to like $103, something like that. Do the math. The one of the greatest assets that all of you have right now is you're young. You are very, very young, and you have time. And do you know that Albert Einstein replied to a question, what do you think the most amazing thing in the universe is? He replied, compound interest. I mean, this is the guy that developed the theory of relativity. And he thought compound interest was more amazing. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit saved today, compounded each month for 40 years, adds up to a whole bunch of money. If we take a look at your $189 credit card payment over 40 years, it's over $2 million. Your student loan payment over 40 years, and God, I hope none of you are on the 40-year repayment plan. Oh, please. That's $4.6 million. That new car payment that you wanted to make, $6.5 million. The used car, I mean, that's $6.2 million, and the lease, I'm not even going to run the numbers on that. Nope, just don't do it. Speaking of, how do we run these numbers? Spreadsheets. I really hope that you seniors and you juniors and everyone else knows how to use spreadsheets. I think it would be a travesty if you graduated from Indiana University without knowing how to use a spreadsheet, and I'm talking to you art majors. Spreadsheets are your friend. You need to know how to use spreadsheets. And if I can operate technology, okay, I'm not smart enough to operate technology. Go to a spreadsheet. I don't care. Excel, numeric, Google Sheets, and go to the formula section. Scroll down, you'll find financial, and what you're going to look for is future value. Sometimes it's just abbreviated FV. And there are three elements that you enter into that equation. Your monthly interest, so if you're 12% per year, that would be 0.01. Your monthly payment, whatever you like it to be, $100. And your number of periods. That would be how many payments are you going to make. So if we're talking 40 years, that's 480 payments. And we're assuming that you're starting at $0 in the account. And punch those in, boom, you've got your answer. So $100 saved every month over the next 40 years is $1.2 million. So please just think about this. If you can reduce the amount of debt payments every month and increase the amount of saving payments, investment payments every month, it really doesn't take very long until you can start to accumulate some money. And whenever you accumulate a whole bunch of money, then you can spend a whole bunch of money. You can give a whole bunch of money away. You can use a whole bunch of money to improve other people's lives. But if you don't have the money, you're not helping anybody else. Poor people don't really help poor people. Rich people can help poor people. A poor person in Philadelphia can't drill a water well in Africa. A rich person in Philadelphia can drill a water well in Africa. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with accumulating wealth. There's a lot of things that your generation has been dumped on, and they're simply not true. And being college-educated people, I hope that you have the cognitive will to be able to self-evaluate things and figure out for yourself the merits of what you hear and what you're being told. So my fourth point here, if I can get back, your income minus what you spend is your wealth. It's that simple. Spend your money wisely. You can go fishing any place you want. You can buy a really nice sport fishing boat, as we see here. You can employ a whole bunch of craftsmen in building that boat, and a whole bunch of people who made the materials that went into that boat, and this is how we keep our economy going. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting. I hope you didn't find it too boring, or I was just, full of it. I tried to avoid soapboxes in class, and I thank you for indulging me in this one. I hope you find some of these points helpful to you. I can't do anything but wish you the very best in your financial future and also in your fishing future. So take care. Thanks a lot.